Yo, what's going on? It's your main man, Rick the Dawn. Thank you to everybody who throws a like on the video. I just saw Thunderbolts. Really good movie overall. The very first thing I want to get out the way is the characters. I think that most people who don't really know these characters might struggle to understand what they did or how they played a part in the film. You had the one lady. She was the main female lead or protagonist, which is kind of weird because this movie's based off of antagonists. But she was clearly the lead woman. She was highly acrobatic and skilled at fighting. Then you had her father, and he was basically a brute strength character. He reminded you of maybe the Hulk without the super metamorphosis. Then you had this Captain America wannabe. He was basically Captain America, but the low budget version. And trust me, there were several jokes about his character in the movie. You had this character, which is my personal favorite. She was like a ghost. She could basically teleport and disappear on command. They did amazing things with this character. I love the special effects as it relates to this character. And this is the only character in the film to kill a superhero, which is pretty strange. Then you had the character with the bionic arm, and basically this arm does exactly what you think it does. It's super strength, super powered, but that's pretty much what he was known for. And he also had really great agility and speed. Then the main baddie, the villain, who also was a good guy at one point in the film, he was basically all powerful. He kind of played like a Superman type character. And once he died in the film, he turned into evil Superman type character. All right, so that is pretty much all the main superheroes in the film, and it was pretty dope. The story is kind of all over the place, and I almost nodded off at one point, and then the action kicked in, and I was back into it. But essentially, it centers around Val, who is a politician who has deep ties into superhero mythology and superhero business. And she has an opponent who wants to take her place, and he's basically saying, hey, you're doing some very corrupt things with human beings. You're testing them out, and I'm ready to expose your work and take your place, essentially. And what she is doing is she has employed all of these mercenaries to go out and kind of cover things up, kill the right people, hide the right information, blow things up, just to kind of cover her tracks. But when the heat starts to bear down on Val, who's a politician, she says, I have to now get rid of these mercenaries because these mercenaries, they know where all my skeletons are. So essentially, she sets all of the mercenaries up to meet at the same location, and each of them think that they're going to do a job. But when they get there, they find each other and they're trying to kill each other. And this goes back to what I said about the ghost-like female character who is the only character to kill a superhero in the film. And she does kill one of the mercenaries that shows up at that particular point. But once they realize that they are all being set up by Val, they decide that they need to work together. But there's one weird thing that happens. There's this guy named Bob there, and they're like, wait, he doesn't seem to have any superpowers. Why are you here? And Bob is also confused, and we later learn that he has amnesia, and he gets it every so often. And it's kind of funny, by the way. But anyway, they work with each other to get out of the incinerator because that's what they're in. They're basically in this big fancy oven, and they work and combine their forces to get out of that. And that's a really cool part of the film. But they get out of it, and they go on this crusade to essentially stop Val. But Val is one step ahead of them, like she's been the entire film. She has all these military militia groups ready to take them down because she's also watching them break free from the incinerator. And this is at this point where you find out that she had this gigantic plan to replace the Avengers because the Avengers all died in Endgame. So this pretty much made New York open season on New York for every villain. So Val took it upon herself to create a superhuman, basically like a Superman, that can fight and basically take the place of the Avengers. Now, as you can probably see, her intentions are good, but she's also killing human beings and trying to find the perfect specimen for this initiative. And this is where Bob comes in. She thought that Bob and all these other people were going to be blown up and basically inflamed and incinerated in the incinerator. But it turns out Bob was the one who got free, or he's the one who survived all of the tests. And when she finds out that Bob is alive, she's like, wait a minute. So that means my experiment worked. that is pretty much what happens. So then she's like, wait. She's now trying to back the militia off and say, hey, don't kill everybody. We want to capture everybody in a non-lethal fashion. But it's kind of too late because now the cat is out of the bag. The militia go in, they try to stop these thunderbolts, if you will, and they pretty much fail miserably. And one thing they do well is they are able to capture Bob, okay, and pull him away from the rest of the group. And once Val is able to speak to Bob and kind of like indoctrinate him with, whatever she wants to tell him and what he could be, that's when Bob realizes, wait a minute, I'm a superhero. And she does this really cool thing. She makes sure that she creates a kill switch in the event that Bob or Robert goes off the hinges, right? And that's what happens. After Bob realizes that he's a superhero and he has all this superhuman strength, that's about when he starts to lose it. He's like, wait, why am I taking orders from Val or a human being? I'm all powerful. And that's where all the chaos happens, right? But we also see in the incinerator, every time someone touches Bob, they go into this weird fantasy place in their conscious or in their brain. And essentially, touching Bob meant being transported to the worst day of your life. Now, what is the worst day of your life? Where you were in a position to stop something bad from happening, or I shouldn't even say what the worst is. What is the most shameful time of your life? That's what this is really all about. What is the most shameful thing you've ever done? That is what touching Bob seems to do to anybody who touches him, right? And that is essentially what happens. And it turns out that even though Bob is the only specimen to survive all these tests, he's kind of flawed because while he is pretty cool, he's not the perfect specimen. Turns out someone just walked up to him like, hey, do you want to be a superhero? Basically, you want to do something good for humanity? And he's like, yeah, I'll sign up, because he was depressed. But we turned out that same depression is also being super powered, right? So that's a part of who he is. It's not like they found a guy from Harvard and said, hey, you are the perfect specimen to be a superhero. You go to church on Sundays. No, they found someone who was pretty much down and out, didn't really have his life together, had struggles with and bouts with depression. So when they turn him into a superhero, he's not only a superhero, he's also a supervillain combined in one. So going back to the point at which Bob feels like he can basically overpower Val, like, hey, you gave me these powers, but I feel so strong, I don't feel like I need to listen to you. Well, this is the point where Val hits the kill switch to shut him down, because she's like, okay, I felt like this was a possibility. But what she doesn't account for is that once you kill, Bob, or once Bob died, he turns into this solid black figure. He basically looks like a shadow. And I wasn't able to catch his name, but it might be the Void. I could be wrong. Most likely I am. But the point is, he becomes the evil version of what Bob is. He becomes the evil Superman. And this is where all the fun happens as well, because in order to save the day, it's a little different from other movies where a lot of the saving happens in the real world. In fact, the saving happens in the brain of Bob, because they have to be willingly captured by Bob, because Bob creates this really cool dark shadow over the city of New York. And anybody who's caught in that shadow disappears into the shadow realm. So the Thunderbolts have to be willingly caught by the shadow realm so that they can get inside the mind of Bob and free him, because it turns out that Bob is not really a bad guy. He is the typical person that struggles with mental health issues. All right. And they get inside of his brain and they find him sitting there in a safe room. Now, it turns out this safe room is the same place that he was when he was experiencing a very shameful moment. That is watching, I think, his father abuse his mother. So that was shameful for him because he wasn't big enough or strong enough or courageous enough to step in and stop it. But that's where he's found. And then from there, chaos ensues. Of course, I would like to leave some things for you to discover on your own. But essentially, they fight against the evil version of Bob. And they're pretty much able to kind of resurrect him and bring him back. Okay? Once they save Bob, they are at full force, okay, full strength. But it turns out Bob forgets everything that happens because he has amnesia, all right? So he's like, hey, what are you guys doing here? After they pull him out of the shadow realm, he forgets everything. Kind of like he did when he was discovered, or shall I say he discovered himself and the incinerator. And just as they're about to basically wreak havoc on Val, turns out the news is there, and the news is capturing Val, and she introduces them as the new Avengers. So they're like ready to like strike Val down, but she has all these people capturing her film, her footage, or what have you, and all this press is there. And, they're ready to take her down, but she stops them in their tracks with what she says. She says, "Everyone, welcome to the new Avengers." So they realize, hey, we can't hurt her in front of these cameras because now we're the heroes somehow. And I thought that was a really cool way to end the film. But she also learns, I'm talking about Val, she learns that these characters are basically, they're aware of what she's doing. She's trying to be reelected and all that kind of stuff. And she's using them to get herself reelected. And it's at this point where the main female character says, "We own you, right?" Basically, like, we'll play along, but you better do exactly as we say or your cover is blown. So that was essentially the story. Was it good? I would give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was pretty good. There were some points where I was starting to nod off, but I'm not sure that is the film's fault. I just had a long day. But it was some points where it started to take a little dive. But then right as you get completely sleep, it just revs up so much that you can't sleep. Was it funny? I think that the main character, the main female character's father, who had the brute strength, he provided all the laughs. It's pretty funny. But outside of that, it wasn't really as funny as I thought it would be. But that's not a problem either. But I'll tell you one thing. One thing that was really cool about the film was the special effects. I thought the special effects were top notch. I was looking for edit mistakes and problems and all that kind of stuff, and I just couldn't find any. I'll tell you what, though. There's a new Fantastic Four movie coming out, and I saw that in the previews for this film. So you want to talk about bad effects? The Rock character, I forget his name. Oh my gosh, I should know it. But the character who's like all rock, terrible effects. Okay, terrible effects. So I'll tell you, I saw that in the previews, and I'm like, is this what I'm about to see as far as this movie is concerned? Well, no, that wasn't the case inside of the film itself. Great special effects, great explosions, everything looked crisp. I thought that part of the film was actually pretty good. All right, but thank you all for watching. I hope that helps you make a decision on whether or not you want to see it. Would I see it again? Of course not. I already saw it. But if I saw the film, was able to tell myself, wait, how can I say this? I want to say, if I saw the film and was able to go back and erase my knowledge of seeing the film, but was able to kind of keep a decent understanding of whether I enjoyed it or not, would I go see it again? Like, okay, like the movie is erased, but how about this? This is what I meant to say. If I could erase my experience and rewind time and watch this review, the one I'm making right now, and say, okay, I hear what he's saying. Do I want to go see it? Would I go see it again? I would say no. No, I would not go see it again. I'll tell you what. Let me give you a little context. I just feel like, these movies are becoming the same, and that is being filled with tropes, superhero tropes. The good guys are going to win. This person will be invulnerable to being hurt. That no one is going to get shot. Like, there's a point in the film where there are literally like 3 Hummers with turrets, turrets on the top of the Hummers, all shooting at the same vehicle that the Thunderbolts are in. And when I tell you that the fake Captain America is able to block every shot with his shield, it's just so unbelievable. And also, if you're trying to take down this car, why would you not just litter this car with bullets? In fact, I feel like they did. But when you look at the car, you only see about 20 shots. But it feels like they should have shot about 200 shots. So it kind of breaks the immersion. And there's one point where at least 2 times in that same scene, superheroes are outside of the car, outside of the range of fake Captain America's shield, and they're not killed immediately. They're not shot immediately. So it breaks immersion because they're like right there, and you're just thinking to yourself, if you're trying to shoot them, why are you not shooting at them right now when they're clearly there to be shot? It just was a little immersion breaking for me. But it was kind of cool to see the ghost character kill a hero, or dare I say an anti-hero. That's what that was. She actually shot one in the head and they actually died. I was like, okay, all right, now the stakes are higher. Because when I see these tropes, it makes me not want to watch. But when I see that the director or the writers are willing to sacrifice a character of substantial importance, it lets me know that, okay, anything can happen. You know what I mean? Anything can happen. But yeah, I probably wouldn't see it again after watching this review because I feel like I gave you a pretty decent understanding of what to expect. So for me, it's not that I wouldn't want to see it at all, but I wouldn't go see it in theaters. I would just wait for it to pop up on Netflix in about 3 weeks. All right. Thank you all for watching. It's been solid. Peace.